Having known the children and the classroom ambience, let's try to decode the poet's views on the donation. He had declared in the previous stanza that the narrow streets of the slums are sealed with a lead sky and they are far away from the rivers, scapes, and the stars of words, suggesting that the life of these children he described is too scopeless, unforeseeable, and removed from civility, possibility, and learning. When living itself is comically difficult for them, what would the maps, valleys, and celebrated works could bring into their struggle-filled lives? Let's read the stanza to know further. Surely, Shakespeare is wicked. The map, a bad example. With ships and sun and love tempting them to steal, for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes from fog to endless night. On their slag heap, these children wear skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel with mended glass, like bottle bits on stones. All of their time and space are foggy slum. So, blot their maps with slums as big as doom. The poet appears to have taken a satirical view in this stanza. He calls upon Shakespeare wicked and maps a bad example. Let's see why the poet would dare to call someone like Shakespeare wicked. Before we could do that, let's consider some of Shakespeare's themes. Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, King Lear, Julius Caesar, and Othello are some of Shakespeare's plays that deal with intense emotions such as love, madness, violence, ambitiousness, revenge. Shakespeare's characters are personifications of human derangement like corruption, hate, prejudice, murder, torture, betrayal, manipulation, oppression, and defying of rules. Well, are these not what the children in the slums see every day? The educated folk who try to decode Shakespeare would probably be able to differentiate wheat from chaff and take good from bad. The children who haven't seen much of good and only most of bad and live to learn the very same things in the slum, what they learn through Shakespeare's plays would only be a projection of intents and evil. Do you think the children of the slum would learn what is intended by Shakespeare and the donors? Rather not. They would take it all as such and turn their lives into hell, as the plays are so enticing and exciting. So, Shakespeare is bad, as his plays would do them more harm than good. Maps are bad examples. You know why? As they would show them new lands and tempt the children of the slum to explore. The slum is never a part of the world of maps. In fact, man-made wonders and the world of nature are only landscaped in maps. This would make them yearn for ships and sun and love. These are references to exploration, warmth, new hope, and seeking relationship outside their boundaries. Well, the poet feels that these donations do more harm than good to the children of the slum. The donations give them a glimpse of a different reality other than theirs. They rather tempt them to enjoy the goodness of the new worlds introduced to them through the so-called donation. Instead of making their world better, it would seal their already dingy homes into a hideout, branding them as criminals in the pursuit of seeking new worlds at any cost. The children, as told to you already, are malnourished and puny. Slag heap is a striking comparison to their misshapen, skinny structure, where the skin is just a paper-thin cover through which their bones protrude. Their parents, who couldn't afford to get them a pair of new glasses, could only get them a heavy and a cheap spectacles, and the lens fixed to it are broken and mended. They appear to be as heavy as stones, patched with glass here and there, more like the glistening bits on stones. To sum up quickly, Spender takes a sarcastic stand as to how the so-called upper class project their reality on children of the slum and how the children in the slum are made to turn into cat's paw. Cat's paw is an idiom for persons who carry out unpleasant or dangerous tasks for someone powerful. These children in the future would turn into cat's paw for the upper class people. He calls Shakespeare wicked and maps bad examples as they both illustrate unrealistic worlds to these children that is different from theirs. They show ship, sun, and love and lure the children to conquer them somehow. Instead of doing them good, the donations tempt them to steal and take to wrong ways. Spender sees the donations as outwitting and hoodwinking the hapless slum dwellers with a kind of enticing world they have not seen or heard. It is their way of ensuring that these people always remain under their thumb, and Spender sees them as honey traps, which appear to be a fine support for their education, but in fact an evil scheme to doom the slum children forever. He sees the children as star-crossed victims of prejudice and class struggle. The children are described as slag heap, as they are emaciated and malnourished. They wear mended spectacles which sit on heavy frames that weigh as heavy as stones, and the broken specs glisten like the glistening species on rocky surfaces. The poet makes one final appeal to the upper crust of the society, not to introduce these innocent children to unknown worlds and later condemn them as criminals inside their slums. Instead, he wants the class of donors to mark their maps with slums as heavy and fatal as the doom, because they don't know anything other than that, and the so-called magnanimity would seal them in slums forever. Ultimately, they would be barred from the outer world anyway. Here is a glossary of difficult words from this stanza. I want you to go through them carefully. Let's discuss the poetic devices used in this stanza. The poet aims to lay bare the state of affairs deliberately in this stanza. He calls Shakespeare wicked and Map a bad example. He is scornful and suspicious about the intentions of the donors. He adopts a grim voice as he mocks at the supposed byproduct that Shakespeare and Maps would bring about. Would the ships, the sun, and love tempt them to steal really? Not exactly though. They refer to the fantastic worlds these would portray, as these are the symbols and metaphor for travel, warmth, new horizons and hope, and platonic emotions. The use of satire is very skillful and effective here. The next device in discussion is metaphor. Cramped holes is a metaphor for slum houses which resemble and feel as small as holes. Slag heap is another metaphor for their bone protruding shapeless bodies covered with a paper thin skin. Next is simile. The metal frames of their spectacles are so heavy that they are compared to stones whose surface flicker with glittering pieces of mended glasses. Another striking simile the poet calls for is to blot the slums as big as doom. This arises out of utter dejection of the poet. Here, he appeals satirically to the so-called benevolent lot to put on a statute to smear the map of these unfortunate children with a depiction of slums as fatal and significant as the doom itself. This results out of dejection that results from contemplation on the children's future and the outcome of the donation. Next, we're going to discuss climax, which has been effectively employed in this stanza as well. It is a rhetoric device that builds up like staircase or ladder, where the words get arranged in an increasing intensity. The life of children at the moment is surrounded by fog. They can't see what is on the other side of their life. Fog, at least, would get cleared when the conditions become favorable for them someday. What about the nights that never dawn? This image is so powerful that suggests that their future could probably be dark forever because of the thoughtless aids poured unto them. So, what is the remedy for all these? The poet doesn't just stop at indicating what he feels as the faults of the society. He also suggests the measures to overcome it in the following stanza. Let's see.